chair for the San Diego chapter for ASIS. So thank you for this collaboration with the Orange County chapter. I also chair the Emerging Technology Group steering group for ASIS International, and we're always putting out content out there around emerging technologies like AI, drones, robotics, anything that's coming into our industry. We like to educate the industry to our end customers, our systems integrators, our vendors. So another really good resource. I'm also a part of SIA, so I'm part of their AI advisory board, along with fellow other members in steering AI within the industry and influencing it from a also government regulation perspective, both federal and locally. So I do a lot of stuff outside of just working for Axis. And the presentation I'm presenting today is all about looking at the insights that AI is going to provide in the security industry. It's very agnostic. There are going to be some images are coming from the company that I work for, but it applies to everybody. It applies to Hanwha, to Motorola, to all the different vendors out there that have IP cameras. So with that, I want to make sure that you guys understand the messaging here is about the industry, about furthering the industry across, because I think competition is great. It's healthy and it allows for our customers to be able to take advantage of all the different technology innovations out there. So with this, this presentation today is really looking into the practical uses of AI in the security industry and giving you guys a glimpse of what's coming down the road. So when we start with this presentation, what I normally like to try to let people know when it comes to AI is, make sure it moves here, is AI doesn't exist without data. So if any of the systems that we have out there has no data, it's not going to use AI. AI is useless. It requires data to be effective. So in the security industry, we know that a lot of our different systems out there has a lot of data already that's being utilized right now. And that's the reason why the advancements in AI architecture and innovation is looking at our industry and others to look at how can they help us utilize it much more efficiently. From that standpoint, again, AI is almost like a loaded word. Everybody's using it. It's kind of like back then when, people in the industry were talking about, megapixels, they're talking about cloud, they're talking about cybersecurity. So what does it all mean into the context of the actual physical security system? So what I have a very simplistic slide in talking about what AI really is, right? So if you think about us as humans, we traverse our environment through our sensors, whether that's through sight, through hearing, through smell, through touch or taste. And our brain is the ultimate, computing engine that does all this and does this almost simultaneously without even us, having to do this, right? So there's a lot of automation happening within our own bodies, and then there are things that we can manually control. So what that really is just a concept with a lot of what engineers and scientists thought of. Like this was like in 1950, so it's been around for decades. They were like, okay, as we build machines, can we mimic the human aspect of it? So really it's just taking sensors from cameras, from radar, from lidar, from thermals, from environmental sensors and things like that. And then the AI is really just a series of instructions or algorithms that actually connects all that data and tries to mimic what we do in real life. So that's the basic core of what it is. There's a lot much more higher level definitions, but I just want to kind of give you the basic core and tee that up to what it means to the security industry. So in the security industry, why are we talking about it now in the last couple of years? We're talking about it because AI has actually gone mainstream, and when it goes mainstream, everybody's going to be more open to talking about what it is, how does it apply to me and in my workplace. So what happened with ChatGPT, everybody here knows what ChatGPT is. They also know the company behind ChatGPT, OpenAI. But then with that, all of a sudden you started to have people talking about companies like Anthropic with Claude, Google's coming out with Gemini, DeepSeek was the Chinese version that used ChatGPT to build its own engine. Twitter has or X has Grok. So all these have become mainstream, and in a way that helps our industry and other industries because when you're talking about new technology, a lot of times times people are unaware or unknown about what it is. So when it becomes mainstream, it kind of pushes our industry and other industries to have a much more relevant dialogue around what it is and what it means and how it's going to impact our industry. And one of the key things here, or probably one of the misperception here, is a lot of people in the security industry, even a couple of years ago that I've talked to, were like, "Oh yeah, it's a fad. We'll wait. We'll hold off." And they'll think that they can hold off this technology beast and adopt it when it's necessary. And really what it is AI is actually more of a tornado. It's actually going to be pulling other industries along, whether we like it or not. And from a security industry perspective, there's going to be so much impact with all the different systems that fall under our category when it comes to video surveillance, access control, intrusion systems, building systems, even pro AV and audio systems. All these have been digitized. And we went through that digital transformation of going from analog to digital. So now that everything's all digital, it's just easier for technologies like AI and others to basically just take advantage of that infrastructure, right? That already digitized data. So this is one of the things that I talk to a lot of vendors, a lot of customers, and even a lot of system integrators is letting them know that you have to now really proactively look at what this is going to do to the industry, how it's going to impact it. Because if you're going to wait, you're going to be left very behind because in the AI industry, things are moving very fast, probably in the last couple of years. So a month in the AI world is almost like 5 or 10 years in other industries. So it's moving so quick that a lot of people don't know how to commercialize the results of it. But at the same time, the things are already moving very, very rapidly with a lot of different vendors out there when it comes to applying some of the architectures around AI into their own existing solutions. So with that, what does that mean for us in the security industry? It's actually democratizing the technology. No longer is the technology utilized by the security industry. It's utilized by some of your end customers' other business units. So if you're servicing certain end customers, whether they're an end customer in real estate, end customer in manufacturing, all these end customers now are realizing that it's across the board. All their business units that are operating under their organization is going to utilize AI in some form or factor. So they're finding ways to now really work together in a much more integrated way. So we've always talked about synergy and integrations and convergence. This is actually very true in a much bigger macro level. And really, what's driving the demand for this is the end customer. The end customers are the ones that are going to adopt and execute on this technology. They're driving the demand. So what you're seeing over the last couple of years, if you've ever been to ISC West or GSX, is how many new companies are showing you technologies around security, right? And the reason why they're doing that is because AI is helping them build these applications much quicker with less manpower. The other aspect of this is you're seeing a lot of what they call AI agents become much more expanded into our environment. We've already seen digital assistants with like Siri and Alexa in the commercial space, but now those things are becoming better and better. I mean, everybody here, when you call customer support, we're hitting zero to talk to a person because that automation is very clunky and it doesn't really service us. But there's very successful companies out there that have put out AI agents that actually can solve a lot of these problems. If you guys have an Amazon account, a lot of times the chatting aspect of Amazon is an AI agent. A lot of times those AI agents can solve your return problems or your purchasing problems very quickly and easily without you interacting with a person. So things are getting better and better as the technology accelerates. Now, what you're going to see in the security industry that's already happening in the last year or so, and it's going to accelerate even more, is things like when it comes to events. So in the security industry, when it comes to building out events logic, whether it's a video surveillance system or an access control system, requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, a lot of training. What you're seeing now is a lot of vendors making this very naturally to create events for you to actually just talk to the system and tell it what you want. And it's going to know all the basic logic underneath the plumbing, and it's going to put together the event rules for you. You're going to see more and more of that become much more native and much more standard in a lot of the solutions out there. And that's already happening already. If you guys have been to any of the latest trade shows, looking at some of the solutions out there, they're starting to do that already. Another aspect that you're starting to see also is incident reporting will be faster. So a lot of these systems where you have to document and report and export video evidence, access control logs, things like that, you're seeing that AI is going to automate some of these SOPs, and it's allowing the operator to actually report on these incidences and document them much quicker, much more faster. A lot of it could be automated, but a lot of it requires human in the loop because it still requires some type of validation and verification. But at the same time, it's going to allow for much more faster and more efficient responses of those documentations. So that's where it's impacting us in the security industry. And really fundamentally, when you think about AI, I like to also talk about the bad parts of it too. So as much as we think it's great, there's also a lot of things that I like to also ground it with some information to the audience. And what AI does is they do hallucinate, they do create a lot of different things that are not real. So one of the things people don't realize is the output of AI is a result of its input. It doesn't really there's not a lot of context to it. It just requires that you give it something, and it's designed to give you an output based on what you're giving its data input. And a lot of it is based on this concept in the data world called garbage in, garbage out. So as these things become more powerful, what you're realizing is that if you're feeding it garbage, it's going to give you garbage back out. So it's not just the quantity of the data that they're looking for, they're also looking for the quality. And here are some screenshots that I have that kind of demonstrate some of these examples. Even to this day, when I go to ChatGPT and I ask them about something that I know is fake, where I ask them about Han1, the acquisition of 2N, it gives me this information and it's not correct, right? Or it doesn't have the context to solve simplistic things. The second screenshot down here is something that my 10-year-old can solve easily, but you give it to something like ChatGPT and it gives you these complex instructions and it doesn't really ground it. So there are some good things and some bad things, and you need to know that, what are the both pros and cons with utilizing it. A lot of the reason why you're seeing a lot of hype around AI is because we as humans, we place a lot of value in the output, and we're only looking at the good things. We're not looking at the bad things. So when it does something miraculously amazing, we're like, oh man, this is amazing. You need to try it. You need to use it. But really, we're not thoughtfully looking at it as a whole and
Are
seeing,
they supposed to be
does this
frozen or
really
are they
apply?
supposed to warm up a little?
Yep. Oh, is somebody can somebody mute? I'm hearing
Just a
some background.
reminder to everyone, if you're not speaking, please mute. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. And then going into the aspect of bias and ethics around AI, it's all driven by humans because a lot of these are developed by humans, and the bias is really relevant there. And a good example is if you take something like video, and you create an AI model to detect vehicles. Let's say I build a model to detect SUVs. Well, what's the definition of an SUV for me in California versus somebody that's going to build a model for an SUV in Europe, right? So these biases are going to be based on humans that are developing these. So the companies that are developing these solutions, there is a little bit of bias based on how they're developing it, and it's all about them being transparent on how they're doing it, how they're putting it together, and what they're using. That's going to be key, and that's an ongoing discussion and another topic that can take hours just to go into. The other thing here is something that we take out of the cybersecurity playbook. It is trust but verify. I think one thing that I tell folks as you're playing around with these systems that have implemented AI architectures, you can trust it, but you should also verify that it's telling you telling you what it is true. So ask it where are you getting this source, and things like that. And there's a lot more to this, but if you trust but verify, that's a really good foundational concept as you're interacting with these systems to really help you understand how to use them much more effectively. So with that, in the security industry, especially in the video surveillance, SIA had a bunch of mega trends they announced for 2025. In this presentation, I'm just going to pull the video surveillance side because of the visual aspect of it, because a lot of security systems out there are very visual, because visual intelligence is very powerful when it comes to understanding what's happening within your facilities. So all this is being impacted in a very accelerated rate in our industry when it comes to the video surveillance systems and what AI has done to this part of our market. And the reason why it's very important to talk about this is AI is becoming very powerful. This is a website that I always tell people to check out because once you go to it and you refresh it, it's going to generate another fake person. This is where generative AI, when it comes to faces and people, are becoming getting into that past that uncanny valley aspect of it. So it's the part of where these people now can be these faces can now be generated in a way that they're fake. So when you're talking about the security industry and adversarial, people that adversarial want to attack your systems, they have tools now that can attack it and become very efficient at it. So how do we combat against that, right? So this is very key here and very important to understand. And one of the things I tell people is I ask them, look at these four images. How do you know as a human which one is the real person? Who's the real person? Who is fake and who is who's not real, right? Because there's so many apps now that can either de-age or age, and those applications are great for like law enforcement when they're trying to look for a person of interest or things like that. But what happens when it's being used differently? So it becomes very challenging. So in this case, the real person is actually number three here, right? So just giving you a sense of where the technology is, where it's heading, and even though you might not think that it's going to impact us, it will impact us. Like I have kids and they have social media apps that do aging and de-aging with their faces and other things that they do with their faces for like well, that's AI related. And these are things that are happening again. Once it's in the mainstream, it's gonna impact our industry in a very negative way if we don't look at it and address it right away. So one of the key things before I go into like the positive aspects of AI and what's going to do to the security industry, I want to kind of ground some things on where the industry needs to go. And this is something that we're pushing as an organization at Axis, through OnVIF and through other competitors as well too, is really looking at this right, like in a video system, when you have an incident and you're pulling a video, you look at these two videos side by side. Which one is the real video clip? It has the same timestamp, same information, but which one is the real? Which one's the fake? One I manipulated with an AI tool to erase something out off of this clip. To make it look like it was part of what the system is, right? And this is going to be very key. This is going to be very things that are going to be utilized by a lot of adversaries out there to manipulate information and data coming out of our security systems. So one of the key things that we're trying to drive is signed video. So signed video is something that's now being adopted by OnVIF. So this is great. So OnVIF is going to push this with other vendors as well too. We developed this at Axis, but we also open sourced it. So a lot of our competitors can go to our open source framework and implement this within their own devices as well too. And this is going to be able to sign the video down to the device that actually generated the data. This is going to be very key because in the future, it's going to be, customers and integrators and whoever's along the chain of managing the security system, they're going to ask for how do you verify the authenticity of the data, the video, the information that you're getting. So this is just one example of authenticity of video, but goes across everything, across data, metadata, access control data. It needs to be able to be authenticated down to the device that's actually generating the data. And I hope that the industry sees this as very foundational because once this is foundational, then we can really look at how to leverage the technology to really apply it to how to solve day-to-day business problems. So what this is one of the key things. So the valid video, the correct video that was not manipulated was the one on the right. The one on the left was where I removed one of my engineers that left the room there. So again, these are already tools available for people to manipulate video out there, and it's going to be very key for us to really push this as an industry so that we protect ourselves. Because one bad actor that causes a distrust within the community is going to cause distrust for everybody. So this is an example, and there's something very foundational. So in the past, what you've seen is you relied on a video management system or a system to do the validation for you. But really, what you're seeing now with what AI is doing, we want to make sure that we can validate the data down to the source. So again, it could be video, it could be metadata, it could be access control data with card swipes, things like that. This is going to be very critical moving forward, and hopefully other vendors like ourselves and others are going to collaboratively move the industry forward by making sure this is foundationally set so that our customers and our integrators don't have to really think about this. This is already that foundational aspect that's going to help them now just look at the application and the solutions that they're solving. So with that, we go into some of the unique things, and probably the most transformative thing to happen in our industry with AI is the detection of people and vehicles. When we went through the digital transformation, video motion detection was huge for us, right? Back in the days of recording video on analog and tapes and swapping op tapes and things like that, going to video motion detection was a huge leap when once we started digitizing all the analog feeds into digital. But really, what you're seeing now is the next big leap with AI and the fact that now instead of being pixel based, we can actually be object based. Things like this, even though this is a video stream from an AXIS camera, this is going to be standardized and normalized across all video cameras out there. Like the ability for a customer to say, "Hey, I can detect people and vehicles and other objects in the scene." It's going to be like the new baseline standard in the security industry, just like what video motion detection did when we moved from analog to digital. So things that we used to saw bounding boxes a couple of years ago when we were like at all is going to be normalized. Like everyone's going to see it across the board, and you're going to see this. But what you're going to see is much more transparency. So in this bounding boxes of identifying people and vehicles, you also see there's percentages, there's confidence levels of showing you the reliability or at least the accuracy or the precision of what the analytic is doing. And that's going to be very key in providing transparency and information to our customers to solve certain problems, whether it's counting people, looking at people flow, looking at vehicle flows, looking at vehicle information, things like that. It's going to be very beneficial for us moving forward. So that's kind of like the new baseline of things that are happening. The other baseline is it's going to start to normalize a lot of these things that we're seeing. In the last couple of years, coming out of the pandemic, everybody was trying to look for occupancy and counting, but there were so many challenges to that. What you're seeing now is with AI technology, it's gonna be standardized and normalized. Like the ability to count hundreds of people in clusters is going to be a reality for us in the next year or so. It's already a reality now in some of the cameras that are out there right now, but it is going to be a much more standard reality for everybody, probably in the next year to year and a half, where you can get a lot of this very fine granular data and information from your camera systems right off the bat. And it's going to be already there for you to take advantage of. It all depends on how you shape that information, how you apply that information into something that's insightful for you in your organization. So that's the standards there. So when you look at AI as a whole, what are some of the things that are going to be the new security baseline standards? And these are some of the things that I've talking to a lot of my colleagues about. Object detection and classification, that's the new standard. No longer will you be looking at video motion detection. Other things that you'll see standard is smart search in video to verify incidents. You start to see a lot of vendors have the ability to just filter through hours and hours and days of video and get to the actual source. That's going to be very standard and that's going to be very natural in a way that you would search on a web browser. The other new thing that will see also is the way vendors are storing the video. No longer is it like a separate video with a different database on the video. You're seeing that the video chunks themselves will have the scene data for context and for indexing. That's how they're getting to their smart search quickly. And that's just a new way of storing video. That's going to be very standard as well too. The rules engine, like I talk about, that's going to be very standard when it becomes very natural for you to just interact with it, saying, "Hey, you know what? I want to set up a rule where I want to count how many people are coming into this parking lot from business hours, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m." Right? And you can just say that, and it'll generate a rule for that through your systems, and it's going to pluck all the cameras, all the necessary sensors, all the necessary things on the back end to give you what you need. That's going to be the new norm for your systems moving forward. We talked about the automation of incident reports and data gathering. That's going to be also very easy for you to report and document a lot of the events and incidences that are happening. And then lastly, what you're going to see is customers will be able to customize analytics from their systems. No longer will you see vendors sell you like, hey, you need to buy this license plate, verification application, or you need to buy this particular, application to catch an intruder hopping a fence. Like you're going to be able to do some very unique things, and this is going to bring a lot of power to the end customer themselves to dictate what business challenges they need to solve because they're going to have the tools necessary from these vendors to do so. It's going to be very powerful, and I think that's where it's heading. Will you get a few of these, off the shelf, models to do certain things? You probably will as a starter, but for the most part, the power is going to be in the customer's hand to do this. And this is why it's very important for integrators to know where the technology is heading, because as an integrator in the security industry, you can learn up and be an expert at this and solve this for your customers, for the ones that don't have the resources to do it themselves. So there's a ton of opportunity that it's going to bring to the industry, and it's going to allow us to grow and find new other business opportunities as well too. So with that, I want to kind of show you some examples. This is one of my partners that I work with, Cameo. So they do object detection, but they do more than just security. So based on the cameras that they do, this is going to give you a glimpse of other things that customers are now asking the system to do outside of security and safety, and other things that might be business challenges that they're trying to comply with. So their solution here is taking the same security system, same camera system, and now using AI to drive risk and compliance detection within a huge customer that's doing manufacturing of turbines and jet engines. So again, this is where you're starting to see a lot of opportunities in our security industry to grow and to educate our customers on things that they can actually solve with the existing infrastructure that they have with their current systems. And this is just an example of one thing that's being done now. So it's not like something that's going to be done in a couple of years. They're actually solving risk and compliance detection with AI models right now, because of the ability to detect people, the ability to understand what those business challenges are from the customers, and how to wrap that into an automated system that allows them to reduce, fines and adhere to compliance, and reduce the risk that they might run into. So that's one example there. Another example in the next slide here is weapons detection, right? In the security industry, we have a lot of companies out there. Now they're enhancing weapons detection. Now, the weapons detection only works when the weapon's visible within the hands of the perpetrator or the adversary. So this is one of my partners that I've worked with in the past, Zero Eyes, and there's a lot others too. But they use AI models to detect, weapons that are visible within the camera stream. But here, instead of having the application automated, their whole solution is a complete human in the loop service where they have operators that utilizes the AI to give them insights, and then they have somebody that verifies it, and then they tie this into an operational aspect to a customer so they can respond and reduce the response times to incidences like this. So that's an example of things that are happening now that you're seeing already, and it's only going to grow to be more efficient and much more effective as it becomes better and better. Another one is a company that does access control. This is Hakamo. So they use AI to do automate SOP, standard operation procedures. So in this guard here, they're using AI with computer vision to first detect an intruder coming in, and then as you can see in this quick video that they've edited for me, you can see that everything's automated from a call down to a speaker to automatic officer being dispatched to having the footage of the officer being sent to the customer so that they can see all this happening in real time. So all these things are happening now, and they're only going to grow and mature over the next couple of years. So that's an example of one of a solution there. Another really good solution that won an award at IC West is from a company called Bearing. I know Jason really well, who runs Bearing. He built this whole SOP type of security integration into ServiceNow. So if you guys are not familiar with ServiceNow, ServiceNow is like a change management platform, but he's applying a lot of security aspects and operations into their platform, because not only can they manage all the devices and all the things that are happening with all the devices on the network, but he's creating operations. So he's basically creating workflow automations. They're identifying, gathering, and assessing all the security data that involves what's happening within a customer system, and they're creating response. And they can actually respond and resolve these incidents all through looking at SOPs and automating it, and looking at what can be automated and repeatable. So it's a whole new paradigm that's happening. And one of the things that you'll start to see too is companies like ServiceNow where they're starting to add security workflows into their platforms, and then when they tie video into it, it almost looks like a VMS platform. So these are growing vendors and markets that are not necessarily in the security space, but they're slowly growing into the security place because they're providing a lot of value to what they're providing to their customers as an output, as a result of actionable insights and actions to take, immediate response to. So this is an example of something that is growing, and you'll start to see more and more of these apply into the security industry, not just existing systems, but new systems that you might not ever think about that's security related that's going to come in to do this. And this is all built on AI architectures to automate a lot of these tasks. The last demonstration I want to kind of show you is the advancements of why I stated custom analytics are going to be huge because, cameras are going to provide very insightful data when it comes to images and video. But, these huge AI models that either run on the cloud or on-prem servers, they're also very valuable too. So this is an example of a camera that is interacting with Google's Gemini. So Gemini is a vision language model. So it does natural language, but it can also do video summarization. So we actually asked Gemini to provide make, model, trim, and any other attributes of the vehicle when we send it to it. And this is running in the cloud. So just to show you, the latency is like a second. Like there really is no latency. It's going to be more in the milliseconds. But when something happens at the camera level, it's sending just one snapshot of just the car, not the whole scene, and is providing it with other metadata of that car to Gemini. And then what Gemini does is with that information spits back some other additional information that we've asked it for. So when you think about solutions in the security industry in the past couple of years when it comes to license plate verification and other things where it's been very challenging, you're getting models like Gemini that can give you that same information in a mere matter of seconds. Yes, this is running in the cloud and you're going to have to worry about infrastructure and latency, but you can also take this model that's running in the cloud and run it on-prem and other things. So I think what this is showing you is the power of what the AI architecture is doing to a lot of these models. And what it's going to do is, as it becomes much more commercially viable, you're going to see new ways of solving customer problems with the technology. So that's an example of it. And this is really what it comes down to is in the future, in the next couple of years, and you're already starting to see that with a few vendors already, is that customers now can actually build out their own custom models for detection and classification, and they can solve their own business problems. So they can take data from an IP camera, they can store it in a database somewhere. A lot of the IT groups within the organizations already have some type of a database infrastructure. And what's happening is now that data is now being sent to a computer vision team that can take that data, build out a model, and then they can run that model either on the cloud, either on-prem on the facility of the customer, or they can run it actually in the camera itself. So this is kind of like a new way of interacting with AI, and it's going to be very transformative in our industry because of the amount of cameras that we have in our video surveillance system. So that's where that is heading. And hopefully that gives you some ideas on things that you'll be able to pull from your video systems based on the different vendors that you're working with. So with that, it was a lot to take in. I want to kind of now look into questions. Omar, I was going to look into the chat to see if there's any questions or even open it up to people here in here.
So there are a couple of questions.
Okay, perfect.
One that I had asked, and I know Mike had responded, but about the hallucinations, the examples you were giving earlier.
Yeah,
If I put that same question to multiple engines, AI engines,
yeah.
I should get different results from each of the engines, or is the norm that they're probably more alike than different?
You will probably get some differences. Some you might, depends on what you put in, you might get some similarities. Because what's happened with a lot of these large language models from the chat perspective is all their data was built on scraping the internet. So they all have scraped the same data sets, right?
Hmm.
So really what it comes down to is whether GPT or Gemini have added bumpers and guardrails to kind of isolate some of these things, right? Some checks and balances. So in some instances, you're going to see very similar results, and others you're going to see varying results. So as a developer, what I have is I have a platform where I can send one prompt to 3 to 4 different engines simultaneously just to compare and contrast who's giving me the best output, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what you'll start to see. But that's the other aspect of that garbage in, garbage out with the hallucination is because they scraped the internet of all the public information that was out there. They never put any context to that. That's why you're seeing a lot of litigation with certain websites saying, "Oh wait, no, you scraped something that was licensed on my website that I made available for public." So now there's this readjustments from OpenAI, from Grok, from others to kind of reevaluate the data that they use to train so that they don't get into trouble. Yeah.
Awesome. And, I have family who are teachers, and we have this discussion about AI.
Yep.
And I've said the exact same thing, trust but verify. I think as our younger generation starts learning to use AI and trust it and verify it and respect it, I think, things are going to get pretty crazy fast, right? Things are going to advance and mature quickly. Um, I don't want to hog up the questions. Does anybody here have any questions or want to chat about anything regarding AI or anything?
Yep. So Omar, I see in the chat, I just wanted to kind of respond. I think Ayal was
Yep.
talking about AI cloud-based platforms. How are they being adopted in the security and infosec? So I work with a lot of the hyperscalers out there, like Google, AWS, and Azure. So they already have a lot of their info security infrastructure in place. So what they have done is provided a really sound foundation for a lot of new what I call ISVs, independent software vendors, to now utilize cloud services to build out some of the things that they're doing with the capabilities of some of these AI models that are being run on the cloud because of just processing power. I think from a commercial perspective, that's still an unknown. Like I've talked to ISVs where they're trying, they're going to get charged by these hyperscalers on the use of it on the cloud. Then they need to figure out how do they wrap that back into a cost model for the customer. And really the question here for them and the success for some of the ones that have been successful in selling cloud-based AI systems into the security industry is that they're putting a lot more value in the output, in the outcome. Because in the outcome, if you're talking about a customer that has compliance issues and they're being fined millions of dollars a year on compliance, and they're able to solve it with a cloud-based AI solution now instead of waiting for a much cheaper on-prem, and it's going to cost them like 1/10 of the cost of their fines, they're going to find a way to justify the cost. So I think right now, if you go and dissect it in a micro level, it could be very expensive. But if you look at a macro level, where if you focus on the results and how that's impacting business, you can find that there are very successful vendors out there that are applying those types of uses of cloud AI services, and customers are not hesitant to use it because they're seeing that ROI.
Hey, thanks. And we have a question from John. How do you see AI being used in the physical security assessment process?
Oh yeah, so that's another really good question, and one of the key things here is um, there's already platforms out there. They're based off of a digital twin architecture. So you might have seen companies like Hexagon. They have a digital twin platform. Intel has a digital twin platform. NVIDIA, who's leading the AI research and development world, they have a digital twin platform called Omniverse. And what that means is once everything is digitized into this digital twin and you get traffic flow and you get information, this is where you're going to see the next big leap of behavioral assessment analytics, but also risk assessments, where now you can actually have the ability to run simulations and run simulations at scale so that then a veteran who is very experienced in risk analysis can start to really train a simulation model into the way they would look at risk, or they can augment those tools so that they can apply their expertise around risk assessments into providing that to the customer. I think that's huge. I think one of the things you'll see in the consulting space is them using a lot of these new AI tools to help them simulate this. But a lot of the times you're going to need the customers to opt into giving you that data of their facilities because it's all about historical data. And the great thing about these AI models is it's able to find patterns that we can't even think of as humans. So if they become the first stone to say, "Hey, I've noticed this weird pattern. Does this make sense?" And then as a human, we look at it and we go, "Oh, actually, this actually is a risk pattern that I should look into more." Then I can take my knowledge of 20 years in the security industry to say, "Okay, I'm going to apply this," and then the AI is going to learn on how you interact with it. It's become better, and then that's when you'll start to pull some of the risk assessments and be able to repeat certain things that are very basic, and then you can focus more on the more critical risk assessments.
And I'm going to chime in here too. I think AI is going to help us do that quality control and validation of your controls, right? And
Yep.
so hopefully you're identifying gaps and breaches that you probably normally wouldn't identify
Yep.
because the AI is identifying it. So
It is, and that's the key thing is I think the architecture and the framework of where these AI engines are working is being validated as very powerful, but it still needs somebody to help it along the way, and that's why I'm a believer of a human in the loop aspect where there's certain things you can automate, but there's going to be a lot of things that really is going to require a human to drive some of these things, and you can create very powerful tools to augment your capabilities.
another question here,
This
what
is
skills should security professionals develop to stay relevant as AI adoption increases? Said another way, do we all need to learn how to train computer vision models, or is there a more feasible level of competence?
So like any industry, there's a maturity model, right? From beginners to the mature, engineers and developers that know how to work around with this. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot more tools and platforms out there to make this much more easier. So when it comes to training custom models, you'll start to see more and more service level platforms out there that takes out the complexity of annotating and marking out objects as this is a desk, this is a surfboard, this is a coffee maker, to where it'll automate that for you, right? So companies are going to find ways to accelerate that and reduce the time that you have to invest in building these custom models. So from that standpoint, you're going to see a lot of different platforms out there. From an education, personal development perspective, I think one of the key things here that is that everyone in the security industry should learn is learn about what these large language models or large vision models are doing. So this whole architecture around prompting and using the prompting and engaging with these AI models to create other AI models, to create other AI processes are huge. So there's a lot of resources out there where you can go get certifications on just understanding prompt engineering. That's going to be huge because regardless of what the vendors will put into their solutions, it's all going to revolve around this engagement of interaction between you and the AI. So understanding the core concepts and base fundamentals of prompting and how to tee that up is going to be very powerful for you as an end customer, as a systems integrator, even as a vendor, because that is not proprietary to anyone. That is very standard across the board. So there's a lot of educational resources online like Coursera and others that have prompt engineering courses from major universities like Vanderbilt, IBM, from vendors to like IBM, Google. So there's a lot of certifications out there. So I would start with somewhere there, and the investments would be minimal to your team. It would be like like somewhere between like anywhere between 20 to like $100 for those training programs just to get that information, and it's very valuable.
You mentioned
can I
maturity.
just
Oh, go ahead.
can I sorry, this is
Go ahead,
AL. I just
EL.
want to just to interrupt. So regarding assessment, if you look in the chat, I took a picture of a school and I
Yep.
just said CPTED analysis.
Yep.
And it threw out to you a very basic analysis of that image. So if anybody is doing assessments today, you can use this in a very easy way just to get your basic, 70% or initial understanding of what's going on. And if you look, if you anybody takes a picture and just put it in your chat GPT, it will give you a nice analysis of everything. So you don't have to necessarily wait till you get trained or anything. But if you do know how to use ChatGPT and the terminology from the security domain,
Yes.
you can start using it practically today. And I'll put that in the chat just as an example so people can see that, because I find it really, really useful, to do that. And it uses obviously online information
Hmm.
and whatever, but it gives you, if you are in the industry and you understand what you're talking about, you can sift out pretty easily what the unimportant stuff and what is good. So just a little tip that can help people that are doing assessments or trying to understand, to do things. I just thought this is important to share it with you.
Yeah, no, that's a great one because I've seen that before because with OpenAI and like even with Google, their large language models now can do video analysis and summarization, and now they're starting to tie that in. That's why the next biggest term in the AI industry is vision language models. Again, we're powerful human beings, and when you can start to associate images and videos with language, it becomes even more powerful than just the language itself. So what you're seeing there in your demonstration is the beginning of things that are to come. And, a lot of consultants I talked to in the past, they're also looking at not only using open tools like ChatGPT, but if they're worried about confidentiality of their customer information, how do I run that locally so that I can just utilize what's been trained on, but then give it some additional information to train on, to enhance it in the way that would benefit me and my consulting firm. So yeah, the tools are already out there already. It's just a matter of how do you utilize it and how do you use it in your own business practice.
And
One more thing, if I may interject, sorry about that, is whatever I can do, the bad guys can do as well. So, for
Exactly.
example, when I did this picture and I just said, imagine I'm now trying to attack somewhere. So, for them to identify where the vulnerabilities are, I just have to say, show me the vulnerability according to SEPTED,
Yep.
and they will show me from that picture, and I can take that from Google, Google Streets or whatever, and it will give me not a threat analysis, but actually our attack strategy. So you can use that also as a red team approach, whoever wants to see where the vulnerabilities are, by asking the correct question as an attacker rather than a defender. And it's at the tip of your hands already today. So just some
Yep.
need to understand the bad guys also have access to the stuff.
Yep.
So it's something that we need to remember as well.
And that's very true because when you're using open source public stuff, the information that you put in, it could end up being public. So again, we don't the companies that put this out there, they can't classify between good and bad actors. They just put it out there for people to use to consume so they can build a better product. So again, you have to be very cognizant of what you do because again, your adversaries are using the same tools. And that's where I think what you'll start to see is the commercializations and privatizations of some of these tools so that you can actually control the content that you're sharing with it so that it doesn't go outside of your own bubble. So that's going to be huge. And just like you were saying with the simulation stuff, that was the same simulation we were talking to a lot of the digital twin companies because once you have everything from camera perspective to access control to environmental information in the digital world, they can start to simulate an adversary. So we would put ourselves in the red team shoes and go, hey, how would we as an adversary like to attack this? So that by doing that, you train AI models to do a bunch of other things, right? And then again, the more and more it gets used, the more and more it's going to start to find all these other different patterns.
hmm,
Perfect.
we had a
Omar?
question from Saith.
Yeah.
What are current capability trends out there with AI video and access control system integrations to manage identities to build a dynamic list of unaccounted for individuals during mass evacuations in large buildings?
So that's a very good topic. And right now, the what you're seeing is Uh, in the US, there's certain companies that are going to be utilizing facial identification and others that don't. So the challenge with this is when an organization is whether or not they have policies to opt in employee information or guest information to do something like this. One of the things that you're starting to see from the computer vision world is a way to do this without facial identification. They call it what they call it vector similarity embeddings. What they're doing is they're taking other attributes, not from the faces, like clothing, height, posture, movements to create a digital profile that matches a person that traverses across the scene, across multiple cameras. So you'll start to see that evolve over the next year or so to where that type of multi object tracking across multiple cameras, multiple systems are going to be very robust to where if you have a database and things are opt-in to where you have the database of people that are coming in from the access control system to the video system, that you can have the AI now look for exemptions so they can run through these steps. In my last discussion with NVIDIA, they have a multi-tracking engine that they're doing. It requires a little bit more horsepower, so server-based, but I know that myself and other vendors out there that are building edge-based camera systems, the processing is becoming much more powerful. You'll probably start to see more of those happen probably the next year or two as those come out, because usually for hardware it's about an 18-month life cycle. So yeah.
And then I had a question about maturity.
Yep.
You know, some practitioners belong to small organizations. Some are very large organizations, have a big enterprise program, whether it's
Hmm.
risk management, IT, whatever, right? Um, you gave the example of Bearing and ServiceNow earlier. Is it if we're going to dabble in AI in order to create efficiencies within our operations, does it have to be expensive, or do we have to wait, or do we have to accept the fact that we might be spending money, or do you think it can be done cheaply, I
Yeah.
guess?
Yeah, so the thing here is, as great as AI technology is, if it's not commercially viable, it's not going to be adopted, it's not going to be accepted, right? So what you're seeing right now from an operation standpoint, whether you're an end customer or systems integrator or a consultant, is a lot of the bigger companies are already starting the trend, right? So if you
Hmm.
think about it, Microsoft's already integrating AI in all of their Office suites. You talk about Google, AI is all over their Office documents and suites, right? So whether we like it or not, it's going to be a part of it already. Whether you're paying for it or you're using free tools, it's going to be a part of it. So if anything, it's more about education and learning what's available and how do I leverage it, right? Because I think if anyone here has a marketing team, look at what AI is disrupted in the marketing team when it comes to generating videos and images and things like that, where it would cost a lot of money to do, but now you can create a marketing, social media, all this stuff at high velocity, right? At high volume with these AI tools. So it's also reinventing other different business units within your organization. So I think that the core here is, as an organization, you need to look at yourself and go, do I have some sort of a data strategy or a mission and vision on using AI within the data that I'm collecting? That's what we're starting to see when we talk to a lot of end customers, big and small, is that they're starting to realize, wow, all this data I have is very valuable that I've never thought about. And now they're kind of rethinking this with their IT teams. So even as practitioners, as us serving the security industry, there are things that we can improve upon within our maintenance, our service, our operations with these AI tools within our own set. And a lot of it's already inherently there already. And a lot of times, yeah, will there be some cost to it? If there's no commercial viability, it's not going to be successful, right? And that's just the nature of that.
Very good. And John had a question, being newer to AI.
Mhm.
What AI tools already exist and are available to us as independent consultants to assist with assessments or risk analysis? And I would say, or just being a practitioner.
Yeah. I think right now there's not specific tools for risk assessments right now, but just as what y'all put on the screenshot, you can use these large language, large vision models. They're called multimodal models now. So you have them in Gemini, you have them in ChatGPT. There's the free version, but there's also a paid version that you can try out for like a couple months or so. That gives you a little bit more access to some of the other refined models. I would start with those, because right now, it's going to be some of the more industry leading organizations out there. So you have, like I said, ChatGPT is one from OpenAI and Microsoft. You have Google with their Gemini and all their different tools, sets out there. You also have a Claude from Anthropic. So there's a few others, but those are the three, I would say the three main ones that have really advanced that and Meta. Meta, everybody thinks of them as social networking or Facebook, but they have Llama and the Llama model is actually very good too, and you can actually run that on-prem without having to use the cloud. So there's a lot of different tools out there that are available. What I would say is to keep up to speed with this is, in the security industry, we're trying to educate, right? So you have ASIS, you have SIA. I'm also part of NSCA for pro audio video. So you have organizations like ourselves that are trying to educate and provide tools to practitioners to at least start with, to have some type of, beginning point to begin with. So with that, I would go with that, and those are things that I would suggest to just get familiar yourself with. I think what we'll probably see later on is whether or not there's commercially viable for actual full-on risk assessment platforms out there that will do this. We'll take the same core models, but then now refine them in a way that is more tailored to the security industry. You might see that happen. I'm already starting to see different companies do like bid proposals, like RFP responses, where they're using AI to skim through it, summarize it, bring out a template, and then security integrators can at least look at that and then do some final adjustments before they submit the proposal, things like that. So again, if the demand or the need is there, somebody's going to build the platform to do so.
You mentioned
Yeah,
someone had a
sorry, this
well,
is the alligators.
just real
Yeah,
fast. The
yeah.
the we have to be careful, folks. If we're using AIs to create these reports, assessments, or RFPs, we need to make sure the voice is our voice, right?
Yes,
So don't make it sound like a computer or like an alien, right? AI can even go, you can even take that same narrative, put it in AI and say, hey, make it sound more like me. And it can rewrite that for you. So I'm just throw that out there. EL, you were going to say something?
Yeah, one more thing regarding information security. Uh, if you have a corporate like Microsoft or Google and you store all your documents in it and you've got the Copilot or the Gemini, which is internal, it is safe because you keep your documents
yes,
anyway. So if you put anything from customers that you keep there anyway and run the AI and you're running it in the custom in your corporate environment, it is safer than going open space, so to speak. So
exactly.
OpenAI is not Microsoft, but Microsoft has Copilot or Google or whatever. If your corporate environment has an AI capability, sometimes you have to ask IT to turn it on for you, maybe, but it is much safer from a security and your customers and clients to put your information on your network because you put your information there anyway. So if you want to do just meddle around, like you said, at home or on anything, use all of these modules, take from the internet pictures and try it out. But if you really need to do work, my recommendation, use your corporate AI environment, much safer, much securer, and you know that you throw all your stuff there anyway, so you might as well just use that as well. So just keep that in mind when you do want to try things out.
Yeah,
And
that is a very good point. And you want to talk to your IT teams that manage those services because those organizations have business accounts where they can ensure that type of privacy and security with the data that you're interacting with those AI engines that they've incorporated. So yeah, that is very valid. And that's the reason why it's becoming much more mainstream to utilize this because those big entities know that customers don't want their data to be leaked out or shared out. So how do they provide some of the same features that they're providing publicly to the enterprise space? Yeah.
and Ron, I know we're running out of time. Did that answer your question? I'm going to assume yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we hit the 1 o'clock mark. Quang, thank you for this session. It was great, informative. I learned a lot. One more pass. If you have, well, one more thing. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or Quang if you have our emails. If not, my email is omar.valdemar@live.com, and I'll forward on any messages on to Quang. We'll send a video to Quang and he'll post it and we'll share that.
Yep.
So thank you, folks.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Great questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.